right, good morning. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to the webinar series entitled Revitalizing Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes. I'm Anne Francis Buhay, and I'm your host for today. Okay, so this webinar aims to raise awareness to the conservation and sustainable use of socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes through a series of online talks from experts and our resource persons on Satoyama and Satumi principles as approaches to sustainable management and biodiversity conservation. So everyone feel free to greet here on Zoom. And by the way, we're also live on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Philippine Satoyama. And kindly introduce yourself to our Facebook Live comment chat box and kindly include your organization or institution you are representing. So before we begin, I would like to remind everyone of some of our webinar guidelines. So I know that you are all familiar with the Zoom etiquettes. Number one, kindly keep your microphones off or keep it muted if you are not speaking, especially when our guest speaker is already presenting. This is to make sure that the speaker's voice is loud and clear to everyone. Number two, if you have questions while the talk is ongoing, please send your questions using Zoom chat or our Facebook Live comment, and we will take note of your questions and we'll acknowledge them later on during the open forum. And kindly wait for you to be acknowledged. Yes, kindly wait for you to be acknowledged. You may also you will be requested to unmute. If you have questions, you may use the raise hand button once again, and you can turn on your video and then you can ask your question. So we will send the link to the evaluation form later on, and the certificates will be sent to the email indicated in the form. Okay. So on behalf of Project 1 of the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research EIDR Building Climate Smart Communities Be Smart program, I'd like to thank you for your interest in joining in our webinar series, Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes, or SEPLS, originally came from the word Satoyama, which is anchored from the principle of living in harmony with nature. So this event aims to enhance awareness of SEPLS, or the Satoyama concept, as a strategic approach to biodiversity and ecosystem landscape conservation. So let us all have a stimulating and very productive webinar this morning. Okay po ba? Okay, so now let's proceed to the webinar proper. Huwag na po nating patagalin, ano? So I hope that we are all eager to hear our guest speaker for today. But before that, let me introduce to you our speaker. Okay. So our speaker for today's webinar is a graduate of Bachelor of Arts in Sociology at the UP Los Baños in 2007. He finished his master's degree in Environment and Natural Resources Management at the UP Open University in 2016. And in 2020, he received his doctoral degree in Environmental Science from UP Los Baños. He is also a recipient of the Research Productivity Award by the School of Environmental Science and Management, UPLB. His research interests are permaculture design and agroecology, landscape ecology, GIS and drone photography, socio-ecological networks, and environmental communication. He is also interested in learning more about science communication, data visualization, and space science education. So currently, he is the project leader of Permaculture Research Philippines. He is also the senior lecturer of UP Rural High School, and he is a spatial data scientist at Pure Earth Philippines. So everyone, let us all give a warm virtual clap to Dr. Jabez Joshua Flores. Dr. Jabez, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for the introduction, Anne. I'm very excited para dito sa ating webinar, and I'm coming from a place na I think itong mga topics na ganito ay very urgent, and meron akong mga upcoming webinars din na to really sound yung alarm for our climate emergency. So I want to talk to as many people as I can, no, para hindi lang tayo matakot pero ma-encourage din tayo to take action in our small ways, our little ways, tsaka to look for solutions for ourselves. So dito sa aking webinar for today, I have a recorded portion na ipi-play later ni Anne. And then I prepared a little design exercise para meron tayong take home para sa webinar na ito. Okay, Anne, can you play the first part of the lecture? Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot the.
Hello, good morning. My name is Jabez Flores. I'm the project leader for Permaculture Research PH, an independent research initiative I started with my friends and colleagues back in 2015 while I was still a graduate student at UPOU. Our initial goal was to generate academic interest in permaculture by researching on the topic. And now our goal is to document and study permaculture designs in the Philippines for ecosystem restoration. In this short lecture, I will discuss why we urgently need to reimagine our agricultural landscapes within this decade and how permaculture design can help in this process. Also, I will show some examples of permaculture designs in the Philippines from our fieldwork in 2018. And to end on a positive note, I will close with sharing with you how we can design our homes in a permaculture way. We don't need to go outside our homes to see how agriculture has drastically affected our landscapes. The patterns reveal the processes that drive our current food system. And with an exponentially growing population, more land needs to be cleared to make way for staple crops. This results in deforestation and a sharp decrease in biodiversity. In addition to agriculture, urbanization is another driver of our changing landscapes. As you can see from this satellite image, our influence is spreading like an uncontrollable disease. So how can our existence be beneficial to our land? We have to accept the fact that our prevailing agricultural models are extractive. For some, we try to limit our impacts by being sustainable. But being sustainable is only half the battle. We should change the way we look at farms. What if the goal of agriculture is not just to feed people, but to heal ecosystems as well? It's difficult, but that's why we do research. Now I want to align this discussion with socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes. Socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes is a mosaic of different ecosystem types wherein agricultural landscapes or agri-ecosystems coexist and interact with other ecosystems on a landscape scale. Meaning farms don't exist in isolation from their natural environments. It is integrated into the landscape, which includes the socioeconomic and socio-political infrastructures that dictate how these landscapes are managed for the well-being of people. In Japan, these landscapes are called satoyama, while seascapes are called satumi. Now, to manage these landscapes, we are proposing that we have a shared vision for a reimagined agriculture. Then a goal to restore degraded landscapes and ecosystems using the said vision, and then design systems sustainably and regeneratively using permaculture. Here's a graphic from the Savory Institute that illustrates why sustainability is a bridge toward regeneration. We will not have a permaculture workshop here, but I will show you the core ethics and design principles of permaculture, which you can also find in other permaculture references, such as David Holmgren's Permaculture Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability. Permaculture is anchored on three main ethics: care for the earth, care for people, and fair share. It is here where we find the balance in our designs, in which we care about the welfare of the people and of the planet. Now, here are the 12 design principles for starting a permaculture project. It is applicable for any scale, from small home projects to entire communities. The principles are broad enough to be applied either in gardens, farms, restoration projects, and even organizations. I recommend you watch the short lecture on this topic by Andrew Millison of the Oregon State University eCampus YouTube channel. Based on our 2018 fieldwork, we confirmed that permaculture sites in the Philippines follow a common zoning plan or pattern similar to that found in permaculture literature, though it has slight variations because some zoning patterns arise from the actual use of an existing landscape, modified gradually with the guidance of permaculture principles, such as Principle 1, or observe and interact. Here are some examples of permaculture designs in the Philippines. But remember that no two designs are the same because design depends on the ecosystems in which a site is located. Access to resources and socioeconomic status can also be factors that affect the scale and complexity of design. Here's Glinoga Organic Farm in Pitogo, Quezon. Aloha House in Puerto Princesa, Palawan. Tara Farms in Bae, Laguna. Lorenza's Garden and Food Forest Farm in San Manuel, Isabela. And Kabiokid Foundation Incorporated in Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. And here are some common crops that we found in these sites. We have taro, chili, guayabano. Common is bamboo, okra, papaya, turmeric, and malunggay. Now you may be asking, how will I be able to practice permaculture in my garden or my farm? And how about if I only have a small backyard? I'll show you some examples from a project that I did in our house back in 2017. Now here in my front yard, I made a guild or a small assembly of plants that benefit from each other. So in permaculture zoning, this is zone 1 or the garden. Zone 4 is also one common zone. It's more popularly called a food forest. It's an edible landscape that mimics a natural forest. So in permaculture designs, it is located in the outer zones before zone 5, the wilderness.
Okay, thanks for listening to the first part of the webinar. And right now, I would like to have a brief design exercise with you. I'll just share my screen about how we can apply permaculture design principles in your homes. Okay. 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 Can you see my screen? There, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes po.
Okay, so marami nagtatanong, no, how do we start this kind of project? Regardless kung maliit yung inyong land or if you want to apply permaculture in your communities, your barangay, even your town. So paano ba yung thought process behind permaculture? Kasi if you've noticed, no, the permaculture farms that I showed you earlier, it looks like organic farms that practice agroforestry, mixed cropping, polyculture. Kasi it's exactly like that. What distinguishes permaculture from the other methods and techniques and management systems na binanggit ko is yung design process. It's how you think, how you organize, how you utilize the resources that you have for designing the farm. And the goal of the farm, it's not just to produce yung food, but also to heal yung landscape and yung ating mga ecosystems. So I'll give you a brief exercise here. Nung nag-start ako nung 2017 sa aming backyard, so talagang bare land lang siya, wala siyang vegetation at all. So dahil nagpa-practice ako ng permaculture, the first thing that I observed is saan ba tumatama yung araw, no? At certain parts of the day, or pag umuulan, saan ba na iipon yung tubig? So na-identify natin yung mga spots na yon. So this is very crucial pag nagsa-start pa lang. So this is principle 1 sa permaculture is observe and interact. And then through the process of observation, makikita natin na pag walang takip yung ating lupa or mulch, it's either matutuyo siya pag mainit or magpuputik siya pag umuulan. Sa akin, yung objective ng project ko is hindi talaga to grow food but kung paano ma-prevent yung pagpuputik doon sa front yard ko. So mas yun ang concern ko kaysa mag-grow ng food. So the question is, as a permaculture designer or practitioner, is what do I have right now in my ecosystem and what is abundant in my area? So in other words, ano yung meron ako ngayon sa kitchen ko, sa bahay ko na pwede ko nang gamitin dito? Kasi this is one thing na gusto ko sa permaculture is hindi kanya ini-encourage na mag-adapt ng mga bagong technologies or bumili ng mga certain things or technologies. Though through the process of farming or gardening, eventually mag-acquire ka rin. Pero it challenges you to work with what you have. Pagiging resourceful and being creative. So dahil meron nang nagbigay sa akin ng mga kamote para for eating, hindi for planting, sinave ko yung mga cuttings. Tapos ito yung naisip ko, pag tinanim ko to sa ground, mamamulch niya, parang live mulch sa aking ground, tapos mape-prevent ko yung pagpuputik dun sa bahay. So after 1 to 2 months, no, naging kumot na ng lupa yung aking talbos ng kamote. So na-solve ko yung pagpuputik. And then after 3 to 4 months, pwede mo nang i-harvest. Okay, meron din mga malunggay cuttings around the area. So nagtusok lang ako ng 3 doon. And then nakakatulong din siya kasi I see the potential. Pwede siya maging windbreak ko at pwede rin siya maging food source. And then nung lumaki na yung malunggay, napansin ko na dumami yung mga birds na pumupunta. Tapos meron ding mga vines na nag-creep doon sa malunggay na kinakain ng mga birds, yung mga fruits. So natuwa ako. So yun yung naging motivation ko bilang home gardener para magtanim pa ng magtanim kasi gusto ko maraming birds na pumupunta doon sa area ko. So bilangin nyo, meron akong brown shrike na seasonal visitor ko dyan. Tapos meron na akong talbos ng kamote tsaka malunggay. Eventually, nagtanim ako ng gabi kasi merong area na waterlogged. Doon ko siya nilagay at tumubo siya ng maganda. Then eventually, sinabi ko, sige, magpo-produce na ako ng food. Naglagay na ako ng okra. Naglagay na ako ng lemongrass and citronella. And then, naglagay na ako ng bamboo, ng papaya. Tapos meron na akong tinatawag na guild. So parang each of these plants ay nagbe-benefit from one another. Hindi lang sila, nagbe-benefit din ako dun sa presence nila dun sa garden kasi lumamig sa bahay, dumami yung birds, dumami yung aming food source. At nangyari to lahat bago pa mag-pandemic. Kaya 2017 to. 2017, 2018, 2019, tas nag-pandemic 2020. So by the time mag-pandemic, fully loaded na yung aming maliit na garden. Okay, so itong small piece of land na to, marami ka na makukuhang services dito. So merong shade for cooling, provide ng oxygen for you, windbreak pag may bagyo, wildlife habitat also. There's also mulch to prevent soil erosion. Merong mga crops na pwede mong kainin. So basically food security meron ka na rin. Ito yung itsura niya noong 2017 and 2020. So nag-start lang talaga yan doon sa talbos ng kamote. Okay, ito. Yan. And then, dinocument ko rin ano yung mga birds na pumupunta, tsaka ano yung mga food na gusto nilang kunin. So hindi ka lang nagtatanim para sa sarili mo, nagtatanim ka rin para sa kanila. So nakakatuwa kasi pastime ko yan mag-birding, magtingin ng mga birds. Okay, so yun as a small scale. Pero pag tinignan natin at a larger scale, no, ano ba yung itsura ng mga permaculture projects in contrast doon sa mga farms na nasa paligid nila? So here you can see on the left is the one in Bae, on the right is the one in Nueva Ecija. So itong mga permaculture projects sila nasa gitna to ng mga conventional farms natin, yung mga conventional monocrop farms. So from this aerial photo, kitang-kita na natin kaagad ano yung difference niya from the surrounding landscapes. So yung challenge ko sa inyo for this one is to change the way we grow food and ask ourselves, no, are my actions beneficial to the landscape? Permaculture is one way. It's a design philosophy, a design framework na you can use, no, to grow food in a way na not just for growing food or for food security, but also you have in mind, no, yung health ng inyong landscape, ng ecosystem, and the species na nakatira doon. So this is basically iba siya sa sa ating usual na alam. Kasi pag sinabing agriculture or farming, ang goal talaga niyan is economic, no? Economic tsaka food security is you're able to sell food, to grow food and sell food and profit from it. So wala namang mali doon. Pero ang nangyayari kasi sa ganitong model natin, sa extractive model natin agriculture, no? We forget na nagfa-function yung ating ecosystems because of the natural landscape or the natural environment. We have to keep our environment healthy, the ecosystems healthy para makapag-provide ang ecosystems natin ng food for us to eat. So medyo kakaiba siya or kakaiba talaga kasi you would not farm or you would not start a farm to heal the planet, 'di ba? So ang good news dyan is marami ng taong nagpa-practice ngayon dito sa Philippines. And one of our goals is to document those practices. Kasi kami bilang research team, hindi naman kami nagtuturo ng permaculture. What we want to know is ano yung interpretation ng mga Pilipino ng permaculture when they take a permaculture course or read about it or watch about it sa internet. Paano nila to dinadigest, no, yung information, tas i-merge sa kanilang experience sa farm, tsaka i-mix pa yun dun sa alam na nila dati na practices, traditional practices ng farming. So gusto namin makita yung manifestation and combination ng experiences na yon. At finally, paano nagmamanifest yung design sa landscape. So ito yung tinitingnan namin and hopefully pag pwede na rin mag-fieldwork, ma-continue namin yung pagdo-document sa mga sites na to. So far, meron tayong mga 200 sites scattered all over the Philippines. And we were only able to document 12. Baselining pa lang yun, wala pa yung monitoring. So I hope na kung interested kayo sa permaculture, you'll be able to find permaculture school or permaculture educators or teachers dito sa Philippines. Tapos, if you're a student, hopefully this will be a good research topic for your thesis or your dissertation. Okay, so if you want to contact us, we have lots of free materials sa permacultureresearchph.blogspot.com. If you're a student or a researcher, meron na kaming complete bibliography on permaculture. So kung mag-RRL kayo, you can use that. And if you're looking for a permaculture site that you want to visit or study, nandun na rin siya sa aming permaculture map. Okay, so if you have questions, you can ask after the webinar. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jabez. Yes, napaka comprehensive po na na-share po sa atin ni Doc Jabez. And pwede pala natin siyang mai-apply, no, sa ating
Mahina ang boses.
Ay, sorry. Hello, sir? Hello? Clear na po ba? Malakas na po? Okay. Ayan, I hope mas malakas na po yung sound ko. Um, okay, so, all right. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Jabez, for your talk about reimagining agricultural landscapes for ecosystem restoration using permaculture design. So before ako personally parang permaculture, it's a new term for me. Pero ang amazing kasi kaya pala natin siya, posible pala siyang magawa even sa mga homes natin. So for giving us more about ideas on permaculture, thank you, Doc Jabez, its principles, and on how we can practice permaculture in our own home. So if you have any questions for our speaker, please leave them on our Zoom chat box and we'll acknowledge them later on after our discussion. Okay, so we have a guest discussant for today. So let us proceed to our discussion. Our discussant is a professor at the Caraga State University. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Biology at Mindanao State University in 2000, and he took his Master's in Biology at Central Mindanao University, and he graduated in 2005. He finished his PhD in Botany at the University of the Philippines, Las Bañas in 2020. He has a wide array of research interests, including computational ecology and environmental science. He is currently the Research and Development Lead Implementer at the Caraga State University and the Program Leader Proponent for CSU NICER. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a warm virtual clap to Dr. Jess Jumawan. Dr. Jess, good
Thank you very
morning.
much, Anne,
Floor is yours.
for the generous introduction. This morning, I will be the assigned discussant for the topic about the permaculture under our SEPLS. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Flores for coming up with a very interesting presentation about the permaculture in the Philippines. And a couple of years ago, we were just talking about these principles while we were working with our research interests in the University of the Philippines in Los Baños. And now I am very happy that all of his designs and plans and what he really endeavors and passionate about is now becoming a reality in the aspect of permaculture research in the Philippines. So allow me to share to you my prepared PowerPoint slides as a discussant this morning. Right. So this is not a separate lecture, by the way. It's just for my guide, so I can be able to focus my thoughts in my role as a discussant on this morning's topic. So in the previous seminar that we had, and to our viewers in the live stream platform, and to our participants to this morning's webinar series that we have, we were talking about socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes, and we had our previous topic delivered the last time. So under the SEPLS, we were able to define, based on the definition, that we characterize as a mosaic different ecosystem types, no? And the overall goal of this is to majority of the inhabitants eventually would rely on the well-being and on the landscape, no, natural ecosystem components of our landscapes and seascapes. And that was delivered also by our speaker this morning. So this led us to different approaches that are conducted all over the world. And we have a Satoyama initiative, and also one aspect of that is we learned about this morning about our permaculture practice at the same time. So under the Satoyama initiative, this is started as a landscape, no, system aims to promote sustainable production, and that's because of our, let's say, quote unquote greed, no, utilization of our environment. We forgot that our ecosystem services are not already functioning because we have overutilized the limited capability. No, we have not taken the time for those ecosystem services to function again so that we can benefit. No? So back in the days, we were able to understand, our ancestors understood those processes and harness them, for the advantage. But we have completely altered that kind of practice, in our landscapes and seascapes. So now it has led to an initiative that promotes developing an international network. So it has now become a movement in itself, working under the SEPLS platform. So this is our overarching principle that encompasses all practices all over the world. So this one, the Satoyama, is just one of the SEPLS approaches. So here we have Saito and Shibata 2012, who had illustrated practices in Japan under the Satoyama and Satoumi, elaborated also in the previous seminar series that we had. So all in all, it all boils down on the different direct drivers, that change our nature. So wherever aspect that you go, whether you are in the ecological aspects, environmental aspects, socio-ecological research nowadays, all of the scientists converges into these 5 different major drivers. So we have sea and land uses. We have already we have said now, we have already approached the limit of our usage. Issues about exploitation of organisms. We are so greedy that we have harvested too much for this generation and we forgot what's for the next generation. And we have so many issues about pollution, and at the same time we have issues more about resurgence of alien invasive species, in the present in the recent years. So these 5 direct drivers are, of course, influenced by our values in our society, and our behaviors at the same time, that would manifest or include production and consumption patterns. So that would be influenced by the dynamics of the populations, and the trends of the population. Is it increasing or decreasing? Our trade relations, because if we promote vibrant trade, then there will be more resource extraction, technological innovations, for example. Is it good? So now we are more about investing about green technology. That would be good. But if we retain on the old pattern, we are harvesting or extracting too much of our fossil fuels. And at the same time, most importantly, the local to global governance on how we govern our ecosystems or our environment. So in this aspect, it's very nice that we are hearing this back again. So to many, we are hearing a lot about permaculture. But to many, this might be foreign to you, but you are in a nice place because we are talking this platform again. And we are very thankful for our speaker this morning because he is generous enough to share his expertise and his knowledge about permaculture. And this movement is now spreading, and connecting under the SEPLS platform. Then we could see that it is now become an international movement and ecological design systems. So I'd like to, what I heard about from the speaker is just about a term derived from or coined from permanent agriculture, and hence the name permaculture. So meaning to say, without any external inputs, we can do agriculture permanently. Because one of the aspects of ecosystem services could be harnessed when all of this place is intact. So we just basically harnessing what's in the environment could provide us. So under permaculture, it is a consciously designed to augment landscapes that would mimic the patterns, relationships that is naturally inherent in nature, while yielding abundance of the food that we could harvest or gain from permanent agriculture or permaculture practice. So So not only that, I have learned as well reading on the different references in the videos. Thank you for the courtesy of our very gracious yung atin pong speaker. I've learned a lot from the videos that permaculture is not only about design systems, but has also transformed into or can function as a framework as well, no? That would facilitate integrating of the different aspects of knowledge and different practices across many disciplines, no, to support with mixed group of researchers, stakeholders, and land users. So permaculture also has provided us a framework of how people can come together across societies and across different sciences in the hope that we could be able to return back to that original design and consciously designing it to suit our needs in the present days. So addressing our problems in the present days. So that is another dimension of what permaculture is all about. So now people would initially thought about the SEPLS and then the permaculture design. What are these two concepts all about, or practices or movements? Are they opposing forces? And it's very clear that our speaker really told us that the SEPLS is based on the landscape or seascape ecosystem reliance, where the permaculture is about ecological design system. So instead of viewing them as opposing forces, so to speak, quote unquote, we could rather create a harmony, so that the interactive components, the synergy and interconnectivity of those two components, the SEPLS and permaculture, because they are operating the same platform. We have the different landscapes and seascapes, but consciously designing to augment, both two aspects, desire for sustainability of our ecosystem, that we could harness a much better ecosystem services without jeopardizing our environment. So those five major factors could be abated or could be limited. We could address and be able to be sustainable in the long term. So instead of viewing them as opposing forces, we see harmony based on our what our speaker is telling us this morning. So of course, all of these concerns are still we still have faced issues and problems on permaculture in the Philippines. And allow me to share what I have digested about conversations with our speaker and his topic this morning, that the Philippine permaculture, so to speak, has concerns about shifting definitions, or shall we view it as evolution of terminology, right? So there are definition, permaculture varies from source, and this would create, we could understand that this could create confusion, especially to new about the permaculture as a practice or as a design system or as a science in the Philippines, and displays an expansion in subject area over time. So previously, permaculture was in essence a complete agriculture system modeled on existing but simpler examples. But recently, the definition had grown in scope to encompass broader issues that would tackle about human settlements and maintaining a core of agricultural focus. So eventually, rather viewing them as shifting definitions, it has evolved in itself to adapt to a present condition. So the definition had grown in scope to accommodate broader issues in the present day. So in about the historical context, this sounds new. Permaculture sounds new to many, but actually a traditional and or indigenous farming knowledge system has been doing permaculture. Our ancestors have been doing this in the past. Now, that was broken when we introduced a modern concept of agriculture, which is more about resource extraction, extract lang ng extract without looking for sustainability. So now, because of the problems that we encountered at that, our soil has already been acidic, does not grow just like what we have did before, and all of those sort of problems. Now, we are looking back for solutions, and we find out that our traditional and indigenous farming knowledge system are much better or sustainable way. So there is now a resurgence in the modern day. So our traditional and indigenous farming knowledge system already incorporates or incorporated permaculture systems. So at the same time, permaculture, because of other aspects, we have come, in parallel with other movements as well. So like for example, we have Satoyama initiative, for example, and we have permaculture practice. And in the aspect of commercialization, well, you call it organic farming. So all of those parallelism longs or desires for sustainability. So we say that knowledge intensive po yung ating permaculture. That could be true, but it demands time and effort, yes. But our speaker assert that Filipinos are observant, we are easy to learn, and easy to adapt. So I think this might not be a very much of a concern, no? And as much as what we could harness from knowing or understanding the system of permaculture as a design. So what about government and sectoral support? Okay, we know that at this point it is high time, no? Our speaker stressed that is a high time that we have to talk about permaculture in the Philippines and in other areas or other countries as well, no? So it's high time that we talk about this platform. And so it is needed that the programs and fund allocations should consequently increase, no? Or needed, or to make it vibrant. So one aspect is we talk about it, and one aspect is to have programs and fund allocations. At the same time, there is a really need for research that would address problems in the context of our Philippine system. No? So that is what we need to do. There should be more vibrant research activities. So under our project in the UP, OU, we have the IIDR, or these are, and I'm very much thankful to Dr. Buot and the team, Dr. Joanne, to Dr. Bagarinaw, and the entire program components that I am a part of this program that we are doing under the program titled Blending Multimedia Approach, no, and Satoyama Satomi Principles. So under Project 1, our program project leader is Dr. Buot, which is on the assessment, no, on the biophysical environment, and this is implemented in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So this is one of the research dimensions that we could promote, no, and do more about the SEPLS, and hopefully integrate eventually the permaculture system, in the Philippines. So these are our major activities now in the field. At the same time, you're also developing a nicer proposal, no, the niche R&D niche center for every region under the S4CP, or Science for Change. And we are already at the final stages of our proposal, and hopefully this could be implemented sooner. So this is about a nicer under the NRCP. This is a program proposal, this time on wetlands, no? So under the SEPLS, we have the Satoyama, Satoumi, we can have permaculture, and we could introduce also about integrate these concerns about the wetland components. So if we could see, we design the problems, issues in barrier, we focus on wetlands, focusing on rather on Agusan Marsh. We have elaborated the problems and issues in barriers. If you could see, the 5 factors are there. Okay, so we have the biodiversity. Along the biodiversity, we have fragmentation of habitats, land use, no? But this time, the setting is on wetlands. So we also have pollution. We also have problems about humans, no? We have health, valuation about the wetlands. We don't value our wetlands very well. We have the people, we have the IPs, no? Indigenous peoples that are in conflict. And of course, the agro-ecosystem, which we could incorporate the permaculture practice. So eventually, we are looking for a science-based conservation approach in the hope that we could have a sustainable, wise use and sustainable development of our wetlands. So now, in my conclusion, we find ourselves in the aspects about the overarching SEPLS, permaculture. Maybe we introduce wetlands in some other components. So in the realm of these intersecting domains, we find ourselves in the world of similarities and differences. So while it is important that we need to define our identity, okay, but I suggest, or I insist that it is more relevant that we would rather harness synergy. And with that, I would like to thank you for the time that you have listening. Thank you for our speaker for generously, and I hope I give justice. That's what I told the speaker yesterday, to his very much interesting talk about permaculture in the Philippines. Thank you very much po. Magandang umaga po sa lahat.
All right, thank you very much, Doc Jess. Wow, grabe po yung i-share po sa atin ni Doc Jess. No, thank you for the invaluable insights, Doc Jess, on sharing the issues and problems on Philippine permaculture, and indeed our indigenous farming systems incorporates permaculture system, and we need to perhaps once again integrate it. Lalo na po if you were here, if you were present dun po sa first webinar po natin, one of the challenges natin sa indigenous farming systems is medyo nagkaroon na ng erosion, no? So na ang ating youth po, we need to once again reinvigorate that loyalty and that knowledge. So to again wants to achieve our sustainability of our ecosystems and the need for more research activities. All right, so we will now proceed to answer some questions from our audience. We will accommodate the questions. Kung meron na pong questions sa ating chat box. Ayan. So, you may also click the raise hand button and you will be acknowledged and requested to turn on your mics. But since for the interest of time, siguro i-type na lang po natin. And then we will ask that question later on. Okay, so spotlight ko lang po ang ating speaker and discussant. Perhaps you also have a question sa ating discussant. You may also ask them. So we have one question here from CAIN, Carl Ian. Thank you, Sir Jabez and Sir Jess, for the informative lecture. In your own opinion, should we need to convince other farmers who are practicing conventional agriculture to shift into permaculture, and why? Sige po. Perhaps si Doc Jabez po muna ang sumagot, and then maybe may comment din po si Doc Jess.
Okay. So yung answer ko dyan, no, ang first thing that we have to do is put farmers in a position to be able to practice permaculture design. Kasi most of our farmers, hindi nila land kung saan sila nagsasaka eh. 'Di ba? So there is just so much that they can do sa land na hindi sa kanila. Pero pag meron yung land na yun ay sa kanila, they will have, mas empowered sila to design that according sa kung anong alam nila. Mahirap talaga kasi land ownership is going to be an issue here kasi hindi natin siya pwedeng i-ignore kasi what dictates actually yung landscapes natin is yung socio-economic at socio-political din no? So we cannot just tell farmers na you have to practice this, you have to practice organic permaculture or whatever regenerative farming system, no? They have to be in a system or in a position to be able to do the designs that they want. Okay, so I think yun muna yung ating first step. Kasi we can do as many webinars or workshops as we can, but if they're not in a position to make decisions, then hindi magbubunga yung ating training. Doc Jess, you have something to add?
Yes po. Yung sa ating permaculture practice is about design to enhance. So it's a complementary to what we have learned already or what we have already. So it's like additional tool that if they will be able to implement it and be able to observe it, they could be able to harness what would be a better option, given to them. So in fact, it's complementary to what they already learned, and it could augment. Eventually, they would be able also to consider the realm of sustainability much better, no, because when we have a conventional agriculture, it's more about too much resource extraction, and it does not incorporate or value much about sustainable practices. So by convincing them to practice permaculture, so to speak, then we are given them another dimension or a tool so that sustainability issues could be addressed. No? So I think what Dr. Flores have stated is basically permaculture is just a complement to what they have already been doing. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
question.
Okay, thank you po. Ayan, so we'll just be reading some of the comments. Sabi po from Doc Jane, thank you, Doc Jess. Congrats for the very concise presentation. And from Ma'am Madeline, Sir, if ganun po, most likely powerless yung mga farmers. Di po ba possible na kung sino yung owner ng land, sila po yung makausap and ma-inspire regarding permaculture and SEPLS?
Yes, good point. Actually, yun yung nangyayari ngayon. Those who have land, sila yung nag-aaral ng permaculture, no? And kung meron sila mga farmers working for them, doon na nagkakaroon ng trickle down. Pero we want also to be in a position na hindi lang landowners yung natututo. Sana matuto rin mismo yung gumagawa on the ground, no? Hindi lang ganoon. So it's a good initiative for these people na may land. Kaya nga we're doing these webinars. Kasi kung sino, ang daming nagsa-start ng farms ngayon, napansin nyo lately, ang daming bumibili ng lupa. So kung magsa-start kayo ng farm, magiging landowner kayo or farm owner kayo, start it well na. Kaya we're doing this para if you want to start a farm, you're able to buy any area, start it, do it well with this knowledge. No? Tapos kayo na yung magiging trainers ng mga farmers and so on. And eventually mga farmers, sila rin yung magte-train ng mga kapwa nilang farmers. Okay, so there's still hope, no? We will not wait na lahat ng farmers ay maging landowners, though we hope na mangyari din yon, na yung mga farmers natin, sila din yung may owner ng land. Pero right now, nandito tayo sa ganitong position. So yung mga, those who can, those who own land, do it well. Ayan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc Jabez and Doc Jess. Since for the interest of time, it's already past 11, so we'll just proceed po with the giving of certificates. So thank you once again to our speaker and our discussant. And I hope na marami po tang natutunan ng ating audience or participants for today. And we will now proceed to the issuance of certificates to our guest speaker and discussant. And we would like to extend our deepest appreciation by presenting this certificate of appreciation to our speaker and our guest discussant. Okay, yan. So, kita na po ang aking screen. So, for giving invaluable knowledge to Dr. Jabez, Joshua M. Flores, for giving invaluable knowledge and expertise as resource speaker during the webinar topic entitled Reimagining Agricultural Landscapes for Ecosystem Restoration Using Permaculture Design of the Revitalizing Socio-Ecological Production Landscapes and Seascapes webinar series held on 29th April 2022 via Zoom, given this day of 29th day of April 2022, signed Dr. Inocencio Ibuot Jr., Professor and Project Leader, and Dr. Joan V. Serrano, Professor and Program Manager. And we also like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Jess Jumawan for giving invaluable insight as discussant during the webinar topic entitled held on 29th April 2022 via Zoom, given this day of 29th April 2022, signed by Dr. Inocencio Ibuot Jr. and Dr. Joan V. Serrano. All right, so and for all who have been waiting for the evaluation forms, wait lang po, i-send ko lang po dito sa ating chat, or you may also click or scan the QR code that you can see or you could displayed on your screens po. I'll just send the link here. So if you have more questions, you may also send your questions or email Doc Jess, Jabez sa ating sa ating email. Perhaps Doc Jabez could share po yung kanyang email or yung details po, yung links, yung mga information, contact details that was displayed kanina po sa presentation ni Doc Jabez. Ano po?
Yes po. Tinipe ko sa chat yung email tsaka yung website namin.
Okay. Thank you po. Ayan. So the link to the evaluation form is already posted po sa ating Zoom chat box. Later on po, isi-send ko po sa ating Facebook Live. So for our announcements, ayan. Ay, wait lang po. Mamaya na po tayo mag-announce. Mag-ano po muna tayo? Picture taking po muna tayo. So may I request everyone to open up their cameras para po sa ating photo opportunity.
Doc Jess, salamat. Very good.
Thank you, Dr. Jabez. I just take the cue from you.
Thank you, Miss Jess. Thank you very much.
Hi, sir. Thank you po.
Ayan. Hello. Ayan. So,
Doc Jun, classmates kami niyan ni Doc Jess.
Ah, really? Oh,
Magka-group kami niyan.
tukma, no?
Opo.
okay. Naka-open na po ang
I'm
cameras
happy seeing
natin.
him doing his what is he passionate about.
Okay. Picture taking na po. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Next page. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. Sige po. Proceed na po tayo sa announcements natin.
Thank you po.
Okay. Ay, nakikita na po ang aking screen. So, for our announcement, we would like to invite everyone to our next topic of webinar series entitled Groundworks in Restoration of Local Native Seeds, Seedlings, and Trees, Planting Towards SEPLS, Examples from Vietnam, to be presented by our next guest speaker and our first international speaker, Ms. Kien Toda. So this will be held on May 24, 2022 at 10 a.m. Philippine time. So interested participants may register by scanning the QR code on your screen. And I will also like to share yung kung ating registration form naman po for our next webinar. So share ko lang po sa ating Zoom chat box. So ayan na po, nakasend na po sa ating chat box yung links po ng ating registration form. So, as for our final announcements, we are inviting everyone to join us in our monthly webinar series. And we will give a certificate of completion to those who will be able to participate the webinars from our first episode to our last event. So thank you once again for attending and participating to our webinar today. And we hope to see you again on our next webinar on May 24. So have a great day, everyone, and God bless us.
Thank you po. See you.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Anne.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Thank you po for joining.
Excuse me, ma'am. Pa-flash po ako ulit nung evaluation form po. Kung
Yes
okay
po.
lang. Thank you po.
Sige po. I-resend ko po dito sa ating Zoom chat.
Pwedeng ilagay lang natin sa sa chat box siguro.
Opo.
Thank you po.
Si Jerome, andito pala si Jerome Adriano. Kumusta na, Jerome?
Hi, sir.
Ay,
Busy.
kumusta?
Busy sa bata.
Paano mo to nalaman?
sa Facebook, sir. Sa Facebook.
Ay, that's great. Sige, sige. Mag-attend ka lagi, ha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nice to meet you, sir.
Kumusta? Ay, mayroon ka ng produkto.
Dalawa na yan, sir.
Dalawa na.
Dalawa na. Ang
Bilis,
baby
ha?
girl.
Good,
Baby girl,
good.
sir.
Ay,
4 months pa lang. Sige, sir.
good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ingat, ingat.
Birds.
Sir, I think okay na po. I-end ko na po siguro po itong Again, thank you everyone po for joining. Evaluation link po is already shared here po sa ating Zoom chat. And we will stop accepting evaluation po after 24 hours. So, hope maka-join po kayo sa ating next webinar po on May 24. We'll end this Zoom recording na po. Thank you.